Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshunamilitan Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaye Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishnavaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Pravajantam Anupeta Apeta Krityam Rapaino Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tan Maitaya Tadavo Binedus Tam Savabhutam Hridayam Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Bhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshai Kiptashtakamari Tarangamadye Kripa Mai Tvam Sharanam Prapanna Brinde Namaste Charanarvindam Tavevasmi Najivami Tvayavina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So we begin by offering our most humble, respectful, grateful obeisance unto the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus, unto Sri Guru Pada Padmanitya Bhavishta Om Vishnu Pad Asto Tarsat Sri Srimad Bhaktived A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada and Sri Guru Pada Padmanitya Bhavishta Om Vishnu Pad Asto Tarsat Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj under our exalted Rupanuga Gurvarga, all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. So, yesterday we were reading about the spiritual planets, Goloka Vrindavan, non-different from the Gokul Vrindavan, Boma Vrindavan here, being non-different from the Goloka Vrindavan in the spiritual world, and our inability to see it as it is because being covered by material anarthas, desires, which have resulted in us having a material body, one gross, one subtle, and quoting Narottam Das Thakur, oh when will all my material and separate desires be gone, and I will be able to see Vrindavan as it is, right? When will my hair stand on end when I chant the holy name of the Lord, chant the name of Gauranga? When will Nityananda Prabhu show his mercy to me, right? And we discussed the necessity of taking seriously the process of anartha nivriti, which comes by practicing bhakti. The limbs of bhakti, primarily, though, strengthened and energized by the three main limbs, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, right? Smaranam, and the chief of all in the Kali Yuga, Kirtan, right? Our individual japa and our chanting of congregational chanting of the name. So, and until that time that we become free from the conditioned state, anything that we do to try to become happy or purposeful, it's temporary, it's meaningless, and ultimately unsatisfying. But then we read, but with the eyes of love of Godhead, one can see its, in other words, Vrindavan, its real identity as the place where Lord Krishna performs his pastimes with the cowherd boys and cowherd girls. And remember, we're discussing self-realized souls, when they go to Vrindavan, they see it as it is. You know that one story of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, he's walking, I think this was in Navadvip, but they're non-different. And he was walking with his disciples along one road, and they passed one of these sewer pits because India had and still has places where they don't have, where the sewage from different places collects in these pools, and it can be very rank, the smell, right? We've all experienced that. And they were passing by one of these places, and all the disciples were covering their face like this, right, to try and keep the smell away. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada was simply walking and chanting, undisturbed. And then he saw everybody and he laughed. And he said, oh, poor unfortunates, you can't detect the beautiful fragrance of the Dham. Right? He wasn't experiencing that, completely above and beyond all that. Right? And that's our situation as well. We see all the gross material things and we don't see the real Dham. And the pastimes that are going on. When the Goswamis were in Vrindavan, all the trees for them were kalpa-vṛkṣa trees, right? The Jamuna was in its pure, beautiful state. They were so satisfied and happy that no material attraction could deter them or distract them. Remember that story of that poor Brahmana who had a daughter that he needed to be married. And he had no money. And in India, if you don't have money to pay dowry, it's very rare, no matter how qualified your daughter is, no one will take them. Because the tradition is the father has to give something with the daughter to help that family start off, right? So he didn't have anything. And so he was lamenting, and the people said, oh, go to Sanatana Goswami. He was known to be kind of like the chief sadhu in Vrindavan for everyone, because he was always, whenever he was doing his parikram all around Mathura, all around Govardhan, all around Vrindavan, he would stop and speak with the different villagers in their homes. What is your problem? How can I help? And he would solve their problems and give them encouragement, and also by his association encourage them in bhakti. But he was like a kalpa-vṛkṣa tree himself. And so they said, go to him. And so they also said, he has a special stone. I can't remember how he got it, but somehow or other it was known that he had a cintāmaṇi stone there at his place. I think at this point he was at his place near the Jamuna where Madan Mohan is. At that time the Jamuna was very close to that. So this Brahmana came and he said, oh, I'm so distressed. I need money. Sanatana Goswami, oh, I don't have any money. I have nothing. Oh, but I heard you have a touchstone, a cintāmaṇi. Oh, yeah, I do have that somewhere. And he's looking around, and it might be in that rubbish heap over there. And and so he clearing all the leaves and rubbish, and he finds it. And he's very happy, because now he can get unlimited wealth. And he's walking back along the Jamuna. Oh, he's so merciful to me. Da, da, da. And then a thought came to him. Wait a minute. This is supposed to be the most valuable thing, and yet that he has, according to everyone, but he kept it in a rubbish heap, like it was insignificant. He must have something even more valuable. So he went back and he said, you've given me this, but to you this is like rubbish to be thrown out. You must have something even more valuable. And Sanatana Goswami said, yes, I do. Well, I want that. Well, if you want that, you have to take this cintāmaṇi, which will give you everything material, and throw it in the Jamuna. And he went, well, all right, leap of faith, right? Eyes closed, arms out, running blindly, right? No concern. So he throws it in the Jamuna, and Sanatana Goswami gives him the holy name, right? The holy name. And then he gives up everything. He's no longer concerned. Now he has the greatest gift, right? So that's our situation. Until we can give up everything, all of our last little bit of attachments, we won't get that. We'll get something. We may get gradual development in bhakti. We can come to madhyam, But we have to ultimately give up everything. Gurudev said one time, you have to become like, at one time, we will all have to become like Raghunath Das or any of the Goswamis, right? They had nothing material, but they didn't care. They were absorbed in a completely different state of reality. And the holy name has come to give that to us. And so while we're chanting, I was asking Bhakti Swarup Sridhar Maharaj, maybe you know him, very exalted disciple of Bhakti Vaibhav Puri Maharaj, very dear friend of my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. And he's recognized in the Vaishnava community, very advanced. How advanced, who can say? I can't say. I'm a somewhat low-level kanishta, so I can't tell who's who, but I can tell that when I'm in the association of a person, if I become uplifted and inspired or not. And that's one of the symptoms of advanced devotee in their association. So I know by observing certain Gaudiya Math devotees that are very influential and powerful and inspiring, that they all have a very deep commitment to their bhajan, as Gurudev did, as Srila Prabhupada did. Gurudev would lock his door in Mathura for certain hours in the afternoon because there's unlimited things to do. There's always something to do in management of the temple and fixing the temple. Unlimited things, unlimited problems, right? And you can be preoccupied with that from morning to night. Even if you give up sleep, all these things will never be solved. Right? So if you make that your priority above all else, then that's all you'll ever do. But Gurudev would lock his room, and no matter what was going on, he wouldn't open the door. Right? And at a certain time, he'd come out, and then again, all right, let's have class. Let's have kirtan, what problem, what this, what that. And in this way, everything goes on. But everything will then go on much more nicely. It may not go on nicely in an external way as we would like it, but our hearts will be peaceful, our bhakti will develop, and everything else will develop according to the plan of Krishna. The other idea of I've got to do this is my priority because we still have ahankara, thinking that aham, I am the kara, the purusha, the controller, the doer. Krishna's the doer. Radha and Krishna overseeing all the affairs of the temple, of the project. They're the ultimate controllers. And when we align ourselves with them, then we see their will, and then we can go along. Right? This material world will never be Vaikuntha. It will never be, because otherwise how could it be in Vrindavan that they build these beautiful temples and then the Muslims come and destroy them? They have these beautiful libraries, Muslims come and burn it all. So many ups and downs in the material world. Our plans are thwarted. You know, there's an old poet, English, Scottish poet, right? Maybe you know him. What was his name? Burns? What was his first name? Anyway, the best laid plans of mice and men, gang after gley, which means, often go awry. We make our plans, but God has his plans. And we think, but we're just trying to fulfill the world, the desires of the Lord. Yes, but he's trying to help us in our surrender and our recognition that as long as we're doing our best and doing under guidance, then the result, that's up to him. So that's why we have to really, just like this Brahmana who had so many material problems, he gave them all up by taking shelter of Sri Guru, Sanatana Goswami, and bhakti, the process, chanting the holy name. And when we do that, then gradually, these eyes of love of Godhead will manifest, and then we'll be able to see all of that. And what will we see? The next verse, cintāmaṇi-prakara-sadmasu kalpa-vṛkṣa laksha-vṛteshu surabhira-bipalayantam lakshmi sahasra-shata-sambrahma-sevyamanam govindamadi-purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending cows, yielding all desires, in abodes built with spiritual gems and surrounded by millions of purpose trees. Srila Prabhupada says purpose trees. I wonder, why did he use purpose? Because sometimes desire trees, but purpose, what's the purpose? To satisfy Krishna. Their very purpose, their very life, their very existence is to create the environment and the facility for Krishna's pastimes and Leela. He is always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune. That's this next verse. Purpose trees, in the Gopal Champu by Jiva Goswami, Srila Jiva Goswami, is described how every morning Purnamasi, Jogamaya, and Vrindadevi, personification of, Jogamaya oversees all the Leela of Vrindavan, and Vrindadevi has a special function to assist, especially in the pastimes of Shringar Ras, between Krishna and the gopis. Jai Shri Shri Radha Radharaman Chukki Jai Shri Lalita Devi Vishakha Devi Shri Rupa Manjari Rati Manjari Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Srila Gurudev Ki Jai. And they meet together every morning and they discuss what Leela is going to take place that day. Right? Oh, Krishna's going to this forest, so the gopis are going to meet him there. Oh, a demon might be here, so, and then they decide, okay, what the weather should be like in this place and that place, how the forest should be prepared, how the groves should be prepared, the kunjas, they'll need this and that, and so they instruct all the Vana Devis to do their job, prepare this, prepare that, and in this way, and sometimes Madhu Mangal, the grandson of Purnamasi, is also there, because he's one of Krishna's intimate associates, and he'll need some information and input. And those trees, therefore, their purpose is to create the appropriate environment. Oh, be ready. Krishna's coming through your place, your neighborhood today. Be ready with these flowers, these fruits, nice vines for swinging, right? Nice branches for climbing and hiding and all the different sports that they may do. And these trees can manifest themselves in any way, sometimes as gems. When you read the Parikram book that Srila Gurudev prepared about Vrindavan Parikram, he describes Radhakund. And each corner has very special kalpa-vṛkṣa trees. One of them like sapphire, one of them like rubies, one like diamonds, right? One like emeralds. They can manifest in every way, constantly changing. So, tending cows, yielding all desires in abodes built with spiritual gems and surrounded by millions of purpose trees. He is always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune. When you read Ananda Vrindavan Champu, there's a description of the special swing festival that goes on. We should probably read that when the Julana Yatra starts. It's extraordinary how it's an evening swing festival, and there's a gigantic field, right? And all around the field then the trees manifest like gigantic columns, right? And their branches extend overhead like a canopy, and they meet together. And the leaves create a complete canopy, but there are little gaps in the leaves, right? Like in the forest, there's little gaps that sun can come through. But in these, there's little gaps for the full moonlight to come through. And the moonlight comes down and strikes the ground. And everywhere the moonlight, the rays hit, it looks like pearls. And so the field looks like it's full of pearls. This is the nature of that moonlight, right? It looks like beautiful pearls. And then in the center of this giant place, 4 other giant trees. And then between them, a large platform. And in the middle of that large square platform, 4 trees on the column, on the sides, and the middle, 2 more trees. Those 2 trees support a beautiful swing for Radha and Krishna. And they're swinging this way, sometimes this way. Maybe it's 4 trees they have. Anyway, I can't remember. We'll read it. And then on each corner, the trees provide support for 4 more swings. And the 4 different groups of gopis, their leaders have their own swings, and they're swinging towards Radha and Krishna like this, and Radha and Krishna are swinging. And all the trees are creating this extraordinary environment, right, for supporting the swings, for creating the fragrance from their different flowers, from creating the environment to let the moonlight through. And the grass is doing its job, and all the different kinds of gopis are on the borders, where these trees are, singing and providing support, right, for this extraordinary Leela. So there's an 8-page purport on this verse from Brahma Samhita. And you can also read the Brahma Samhita commentary by Jiva Goswami, and then also Bhaktivinoda Thakur. We have that translation. I'll just read a couple of paragraphs. Srila Prabhupada explains that this is a verse from Brahma Samhita, 29th verse. This description of the abode of Krishna gives us definite information of the transcendental place, where it not only is life eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge, but there are ample vegetables, milk, jewels, and beautiful homes and gardens, tended by lovely damsels, who are all goddesses of fortune. Actually, when we think goddess of fortune, we usually equate that with the consorts of Lord Narayan, in his different forms. The gopis are also goddesses of fortune, but they surpass in beauty and qualities all the goddesses of fortune, even the beauty and qualities of the queens in Dwarka. The gopis surpass all. Krishna Loka is the topmost planet in the spiritual sky, and below it are innumerable spheres, a description of which can be found in Srimad Bhagavatam. In the beginning of Lord Brahma's self-realization, he was shown a transcendental vision of the Vaikuntha spheres by the grace of Narayan. Later, by the grace of Krishna, he was shown a transcendental vision of Krishna Loka. This transcendental vision is like the reception of television from the moon via a mechanical system for receiving modulated waves, but it is achieved by penance and meditation within oneself. Right? So, there's a mechanism for this, right? This transcendental vision. When Srila Prabhupada wrote this purport, by then the moon landings had already taken place, so he's making some reference to that, right? This is interesting. In the material world, everything is a creation. Anything we can think of within our experience, including even our own bodies and minds, was created. This process of creation began with the life of Brahma, and the creative principle is prevalent all over the material universe because of the quality of passion. But since the quality of passion is conspicuous by its absence in the Vaikuntha planets, nothing there is created. Everything there is eternally existent. And because there is no mode of ignorance, there is also no question of annihilation or destruction. In the material world, one may try to make everything permanent by developing the above-mentioned qualities of goodness. But because the goodness in the material world is mixed with passion and ignorance, nothing here can exist permanently, despite all the good plans of the best scientific brains. That's a very... then he says, therefore, in the material world, we have no experience of eternity, bliss, and fullness of knowledge, but in the spiritual world, because of the complete absence of the qualitative modes, everything is eternal, blissful, and cognizant. Everything can speak. Everything can move. Everything can hear. And everything can see in fully blessed existence for eternity. The situation being so, naturally, space and time, in the forms of past, present, and future, have no influence there. In the spiritual sky, there is no change because time has no influence. Consequently, the influence of Maya, the total external energy, which induces us to become more and more materialistic and forget our relationship with God, is also absent there. So that's a very interesting way to try to understand and realize the difference between eternal time and material time. Now, even though we're going to speak a little bit about it, in the Jaiva Dharma, when Brajanath is questioning Raghunath Das Babaji Maharaj about eternal time, Raghunath Das tells him, you can't understand it, nor should you try by your intelligence. And anybody who tries to explain it to you, you'll become only more bewildered. So don't even try. It will come to you at the appropriate time by self-realization. In other words, when you become completely free from the material modes and the influence. We see everything by the influence of sattva, rajas, and tamagun through that lens, right? And so even the descriptions of the spiritual world, we use the language that is informed by that influence, right? That's what we use. So, Lord Balaram, he creates the spiritual world, right? By Sandhini Shakti. But the spiritual world's always existent. And then Brajanath says, well, why do we say like that? And he says, that's all we have, these words. We can't conceive of something as being eternal and that there be a cause of that, but the cause never took place at a time. It's just always there, but that's the energy which supports and creates and is responsible for it, right? So in the spiritual world, Lord Baladev is he who is the predominating deity of all existence, but all existence is eternal. But in our realm, creation comes about by the mode of passion. Lord Brahma has the influence of passion so that he can create. Lord Vishnu maintains everything. Lord Shiva is responsible for the destruction of everything. But in this material world, nothing can endure, no matter how nicely you make it. Right? Which is why we have so much difficulty even understanding the history of this world. The history of the Vedic civilizations goes back tens and hundreds of thousands of years. But there's no physical evidence of it. Or now, by advanced archaeology, more and more physical evidence is coming up of highly advanced civilizations, but it's still very difficult to detect. And the most ancient things, way beyond. Because Lord Brahma's day lasts for, 5.5 billion years, right? Which, interestingly enough, is what the scientists think the age of, this universe is. They don't really know. They speculate in so many ways. There used to be a show, what was it called? Cosmos? There was this famous scientist. What was his name? He was very charismatic. He used to talk. What was that guy's name? Remember him? Do you remember his name? Passed. He's gone. It'll come to me. But it was a very entertaining show. He could speak about all kinds of things very nicely. And one show he talked about cosmology of the universe, the history of the universe, from the perspective of science and different religions. And he said at one point, he's speaking about what he called the Hindu scriptures. And he said, interestingly enough, amongst all the scriptures, The Hindu one is the only one that agrees with science. And he says, obviously purely coincidental. He was thinking it was coincidental that they came up with it somehow or other. He never investigated the detail that is within that description. There's, even in the Bhagavatam, there's description of time and the scale of it, and he did mention something of the life of the day of Lord Brahma, but the scale of time in the ancient Vedas, Bhagavatam describes, from the time it takes the sun to move across the space of an atom. The sun is moving in the universe, right? That's what they say. We know that it's moving in a certain way. It's moving so fast. How long does it take to cross the space of an atom? What's an atom, right? So small. All the way up, and then it goes, okay, and 5 of those is this, and 10 of those is this. Finally get up to seconds, minutes, hours, right? And 8-hour periods and all of that, all the way up to the day of Lord Brahma. Extraordinary precision and calculation. He says, purely coincidence. But in many times, we say Goddess Saraswati danced on his tongue. He said something which appeared to be a slight of the Vedic understanding, but actually it was a slight to their own understanding. The only coincidence was that they got something right, partially right for once. Otherwise, usually the scientific description's way off, right? Because all they can do is detect things from the very limited perspective of their tiny conditioned brains. It's called the ascending process. The ascending process is so extraordinarily limited and so time-consuming and so many detours and mistakes, right? What?
Was it David Icke, the British guy? David Icke, the British guy, was it that one you're thinking of?
Wait, I can't hear. I got bad.
David Icke, something. His name is something like that, and he's British, and he gave so many lectures. Okay, he may be.
There's some echo. What'd you say?
David Icke.
What?
David Icke.
No, not David Ice.
Okay.
Not David Ice.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
What?
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
No, he's a modern guy. This guy died many years ago. An intelligent guy. He had some interesting things to say, but limited. Oh, I could look it up, but it's not important. It'll come later. So, anyway, then Srila Prabhupada goes on to describe the difference between the impersonalist conception and the Vaikuntha planet. And then he goes on to describe the Vaikuntha realm in detail and the people there, the Vaikuntha planets, their airplanes, their bodies, the differences in their pastimes and activities. Then he describes the methodology that people use to try to ascend to that level, right? And the difference between going to different planets by materialistic means, spaceships and that, and the Ashtanga yogis, how they can, by controlling the life airs, travel in their subtle body everywhere. A science very much not understood and way beyond the even imagination of materialistic sciences in the Kali Yuga, right? And he calls this civilization bestial. The bestial, animal-like civilization of eating, sleeping, fearing, and sense-gratifying has misled modern man into forgetting how powerful a soul he has. And that is our civilization. Devotees sometimes get distracted by arguing over politics and, which country is right, which country is wrong, which politician is right, which is wrong. They're all bestial, right? Because they don't have any knowledge of the soul. Some of them may have some inclination towards God. And to that degree, that is the determination how closely Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in describing different religions of the world, says we don't condemn anybody's gradual development of spiritual tendency. We encourage it no matter what stage they're at. But we should be able to understand for ourselves the relative value and importance of those by how closely they align and have achieved the development that the Vedic culture describes. All the world religions today, they're more or less descriptions of moral behavior in this world. Parables, stories, histories, which give direction for moral behavior. But there's no real description of the spiritual realm and what it's like and who is God. And I saw one debate. There's just one guy who's always on. He's going out to college campuses. He's a Christian, obviously sincere. And one student asked him, so you're saying God's a person? And he says, yes, but then he stops. And now he's speculating. But not a person like us, a spiritual being. And then he stops and he's trying to explain the difference between a spiritual being and us. And he has no words and no description. And all of a sudden it becomes very vague, right? And even slightly impersonal. Because he has no experience, nothing to draw from. Drawn in that way, but no idea of what spirituality and what God is like. And when they draw him, you see Michelangelo and all, God's got a white beard, and all like that, because he's the oldest person, right? Just like when many artists draw Lord Brahma, they draw him with a big white beard because he's the original person. But Lord Brahma, he doesn't age like we do, right? Neither does Narad Muni, any of these personalities. So bestial civilization. And they says, yes, we're a spiritual spark. Many times more illuminating and dazzling than even the sun. And life is spoiled when man doesn't realize his real identity with his soul. Lord Chaitanya appeared with Lord Nityananda to save man from this type of misleading civilization. So again, Srila Prabhupada mentioning Lord Nityananda, the description of the spiritual world is delivered to us through the agency of Guru, empowered by Lord Nityananda to awaken us to this very extraordinary possibility, opportunity. Not possibility in that it's a chance that we may or may get it, or that it may or may not exist. No, possibility meaning that if we choose to go in this direction, then this is open to us, right? And he says later on, of course, man is endowed with free will. And as such, if he does not want to free himself from the material world, he may enjoy the life even up to the level of Lord Brahma. You may go up there, right? And that place is called Siddhaloka, right? Planet of materially perfect beings. And they have all mystic powers. They can control gravity, space, time, all of that. You only have to give up the gross body then, and then your body's consisting of the very fine elements. Gopakumar, the beauty of the Brihad Bhagavatamrita is it gives us a glimpse into all of these different levels of these planets and what can be experienced spiritually and materially on each of them. And as Gopakumar ascended higher and higher and higher, he saw greater and greater facility. Then he even took the post of Lord Brahma. And yet that was not satisfying to him. Then he went through all the different levels of the universe, right? The levels of the coverings of the universe, right? The different material elements in their most subtle form, that form from which the elements that we see spring. So there's earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, and intelligence, these coverings, and the final covering is Pradhan. And he visited each of them, and in each of them there were living entities, extraordinarily fine. And the level of enjoyment was 10,000 times greater than each of the levels of even Lord Brahma's planet. Lord Brahma's planet was 10,000 times more great than Janaloka, 10,000 more is great than Tapaloka, 10,000 more than Maharaloka, 10,000 more than Svarga. It always increased. And he got to Pradhan, the most subtle and origin of everything, and that was overseen by Mohini Murti. In each level, there was a predominating deity, right? Varaha was earth, Matsya was water, special form of Agni was fire, right? So Mohini Murti said, stay with me, and I'll give you complete power and complete control over everything in the material universes. And he wandered a little bit, just out of curiosity to see it all. But then still his internal hankering was not satisfied yet. And then he went to the next level. And there he went and he came across the impersonal energy, right? The Brahmajyoti. And then he witnessed that. And there's going to be a point when that is also described in the ensuing verses. So Srila Prabhupada goes on in this 8 pages to describe these different levels in the universe. And he concludes by saying, according to Shukadev Goswami, the above description of the material and spiritual skies is neither imaginary nor utopian, right? Some imaginary idea of perfection. The actual, that's what a lot of people, they relegate religious scripture to. And they relegate it to the realm of myth. Something created in the mind of man to give them solace and peace and comfort in a difficult world. It's a survival mechanism, right, that we create. Right? Just like sometimes children have imaginary playmates and imaginary little worlds that they go to in order to find some peace in a difficult world, right? So that's what they're saying religion is. But not. The actual facts are recorded in the Vedic hymns, and Lord Vasudeva disclosed them to Lord Brahma when Brahma satisfied him. One can achieve the perfection of life only when he has a definite idea of Vaikuntha and the Supreme Godhead. Right, that's why we have to hear these. You have to have an idea, prayojana. Right? You have to have a clear idea of your goal. Our goal, our prayojana, is Vrindavan, Brajadam, and specifically a kind of relationship serving Krishna, the son of Nanda and Yashoda, there. Some may awaken a desire to be like a cowherd boy. Some may awaken to be friends of Nanda and Yashoda and have parental affection for Krishna. And some may awaken a desire to be among the Brajadevis and serve in the infinite way, that extraordinary Shringar Ras. Right? Some may awaken a desire to go to Dwarka. There's one devotee, one disciple of Srila Gurudev, Sudevi, wife of Kishore Mohan. She grew up in ISKCON, and her whole desire as a young girl is to be a queen of Dwarka, queen of Krishna and Dwarka, which many people have. It's extraordinary, right? And when Gurudev came and he met her, he snatched the two of them. He says, I've marked you, I've claimed you. Right? They have very deep affection and relationship with Srila Gurudev, and he for them. And he said, oh, those Mahishis, those queens, they want you to be with them. I've come to snatch you away from them and make you a maidservant of Radhika. Right? So even when Gopakumar was in Vaikuntha, the Vaikuntha-vasis, they said, oh, why are you wearing that cowherd dress? You should be with us. Take forearms, wear ornaments, worship Lord Narayan. He's God. Look how magnificent, how opulent he is. What is this cowherd boy stuff? But he couldn't be deterred. He was extraordinarily happy in the presence of Lord Narayan. But at the same time, there was something lacking. Even when he got to Dwarka, and his appreciation and love increased in so many ways beyond that of Vaikuntha, still he was not happy. And Narad Muni sent him to Uddhava. I know why you're unhappy. Uddhava can tell you something. And Uddhava, who had been to Braj, gave him instruction and entrance, and then he went to Braj, and then he was happy. So we have to know about that place so we won't be delayed or deterred. So one can achieve the perfection of life only when he has a definite idea of Vaikuntha and the Supreme Godhead. One should always think about and describe the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for this is recommended in both Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavad Purana, which are two authorized commentaries upon the Vedas. Lord Chaitanya has made all these subject matters easier for the fallen people of this age to accept, and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita has therefore presented them for the easy understanding of all concerned. So Chaitanya Charitamrita, the revelation commentary of Srimad Bhagavatam, and giving us the insight into the secrets of Bhagavad Gita. So we'll stop there, and we'll continue this. Wait, what's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Ekadashi, right? Ekadashi? Okay. Is there, and start of Julana Yatra. So I have to decide. Are we going to hear? Anyway, we'll discuss that. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Bol.